Hello, this is Joe with Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live! So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Hey, good evening, and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show where we talk about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire, fun, and frivolity show. If you want to jump in on the show this evening, here's how you do that.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to greg@bbqcentralshow.com or on the Twitter and Instagrams at BBQ Central Show.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you get the newsletter, which you can subscribe to on the main page of that website, by the way, thebbqcentralshow.com. In about 12 minutes from now, it is the first Tuesday of a month, if you can believe it. We are now in May, 3 days deep as we come to a close on day number 3. And coming to a close will be the 4th month of what has been a private barbecue roundtable with one of the biggest names in barbecue in general, and of course the name when it comes to YouTube and barbecue and live fire cooking. That, of course, is our pal Malcom Reed from How to BBQ Right and Killer Hogs barbecue competition team. And tonight we're going to take our time with ribs because, to me, while there's a lot of great barbecue meats out there, if you go to 10 different people and you ask them, what does barbecue mean to you when it comes to meat? I'm sure there's going to be a large percentage, especially if you're just getting into this whole thing, that the first thing you're going to vomit out of your mouth is brisket. The next might be pulled pork. However, I would contend that the two most popular still to this day would be chicken, but not just any chicken. That would be chicken quarters, the leg and the thigh. To me, this is sacrilegious, I'm sure to say, but to me, that is quintessential backyard barbecue. Leg quarters done at a medium pace and medium heat, glazed with some barbecue sauce. Maybe it drips down into that charcoal where you get a little bit of that burnt barbecue smell coming out, but only in the best ways possible, over caramelization. I love chicken leg quarters. To me, that's the best barbecue. And then 1A is the chicken. 1B is probably going to be ribs. And it's going to be spares for me. However, I will not turn away a loin back if that's all that we have to make. So we've done brisket. We've done pork butt. We've done chicken. And tonight we will finish it off with ribs. And again, we'll take our time with it. Then we'll hold Malcom over for an additional segment this evening. And we'll talk a lot about Memphis in May. That's coming up here, I believe, in a week or two. Memphis in May, very important to How to BBQ Right and Killer Hogs for a number of reasons. So we'll talk to Malcom about what the run-up is and then see what his chances are of pulling out a win. Of course, we know the show, karma attaches. A pitmaster shows up on a Tuesday, and the next time they go out and compete, typically they win. So this is probably all that Malcom needs for a lock on the first ever Grand Championship World Grand Championship down at Memphis in May. So Malcom Reed, first hour. Second hour, we will do a revisit 2 weeks in a row, let's call it like that. He's a Texas embedded correspondent, longest running of those, by the way, and a social media maven in the mix. Doug Scheiding from Row Cookers will be joining us. It's been a few months or so since we've actually delved back into the topic of social media, and Doug is a unique study for me because I remember when he was just a few thousand Instagram followers. And recently, I happened to pop into his profile, and lo and behold, 20,000 plus Instagram followers. So we'll talk about how he's built that, what the diligent steps he's been taking to continue that growth, if he's ever bought followers, if he's ever thought about it, things like this. So we'll teach you how to become a media maven, just like Doug, and then we'll also carry over into the additional segment if we need to make sure we're covering everything else. With any open time left, we got games to play. We got prizes to give away. I have a Before It's Out by Amazon, Sam the Cooking Guy book we can give away as well. So stay tuned for all that. Malcom Reed, first hour, and Doug Scheiding here in your second hour. Don't forget, you can follow me socially, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, at BBQ Central Show. For live video feeds, you can go to Facebook and Twitch/BBQ Central Show. Also on YouTube /RD Rempe, and we are live audibly on Clubhouse as well, which is what you would need to play that game in the second hour if you're so inclined. So let's go ahead and start here this evening, and I want to welcome in a brand new sponsor to the show, and a sponsor in a very big way here for at least the next 3 months, hopefully longer, but coming into the true grilling and barbecue season as we are, if some of you are into those seasons, we certainly welcome in a name that everybody knows at this point, Oklahoma Joe's Smokers and Grills. They are in the sponsor stable, and again, doing it in a big way. It's a brand most of us have heard of that I've just mentioned. We've had the original founder, Joe Davidson, on the show a few times. They've been excellent appearances, and Oklahoma Joe is part of a much bigger company called W.C. Bradley. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this. They might just see Oklahoma Joe sitting in whatever retailer they're visiting and think that's it. However, W.C. Bradley, the parent that also owns brands that you would know, like Charbroil and Sabre Grills, obviously Oklahoma Joe. So very well-established parent company, that being W.C. Bradley, that houses some of the biggest brands in the live fire market. And the thing that makes me happiest is the fact that this is really the first big, I'm using air quotes for the podcast listeners, this is one of the first big companies in the space that sees the benefit of doing advertising on a podcast versus just the traditional type media. I'm sure they do that too. This is the first big one to jump on board here. And yes, we have a number of companies already on here sponsoring, which I appreciate and adore for the longest time, by the way. But for whatever reason, the smaller companies have seen the win for advertising here on this show for years. They have been forced to get outside the box. But the bigger ones have not, and perhaps that all changes now that Oklahoma Joe is aboard. I'm very excited to have them on. You will be hearing a lot about them in the coming months. We'll have some of the folks from the brand to talk about stuff. We'll have some of their favorite ambassadors on the show once a month to talk about live fire, of course, some of the products. So stay tuned for that. And once again, we thank Oklahoma Joe for coming on in this way and hope that not only will we have a great run here over the next 3 months or so during the barbecue and grilling season, but we continue on much longer than that. So once again, shout out to Oklahoma Joe. Now we have some feedback from the show last week. Very big show last week, of course. We had another publicly traded CEO leading the show, but notwithstanding that, we had the debut episode of Season 3 of American Idol Barbecue Central Show Edition, which is what Jim in Florida is writing in about. Greg, why do you continue to torture your fans with this sham of a singing show? Stop it. It's like you guys think you are really good singers or something. Denial isn't just a river in France, Greg. Love the show. Regards, Jim. Hey, Jim, no kidding that Denial isn't a river in France. That's because the Nile River is not.
Andrew, you are not the father.
The Nile River is not in France, you dope.
Get that big stuff out of here.
Good try. Poor execution right at the end. You had it all up there, all the way until the end. When you said Denial isn't a river in France. No kidding. It's not a river in France. Nick in Texas. Greg, I know I'm not a judge on the American Idol Barbecue Central Show panel, but Doug from Texas is easily the worst singer I have ever heard. Like ever. Regards, Nick. Mike in Alabama. John Maris from Solo Stove, a great guest, and I enjoyed hearing about his background and the business stuff as well. That being said, I'm a bit concerned that many of these grill companies' values are tanking in the market. The products are great, but it appears no one is buying it when it comes to public investing. Keep landing the big CEOs in 2022. Very impressive. Regards, Mike. Mike, thank you for listening, of course. Malcom Reed is in the green room. We'll get to him here in just 1 second. Talk ribs. I, of course, will talk to you about the aforementioned Oklahoma Joe's. Since the company's humble beginnings in 1987, which we knew about, Oklahoma Joe's has helped those who appreciate the process of crafting and barbecuing. What began with Joe Davidson, a Barbecue Hall of Fame member, and a dozen hand-built smokers at the Oklahoma State Fair over 30 years ago, has since forged an Oklahoma Joe's brands that build some of the most sought-after smokers in the market. Oklahoma Joe's has a proud history of creating uncompromising smokers and grills with a carefully crafted design, and the newest generation of the popular Rider Series pellet grills carries on this tradition. The new features in the Oklahoma Joe's Rider Deluxe pellet grills include a Pit Control 2.0 system that delivers the category's first dual sensor temperature control. Fire Focus dual sensor feedback optimizes temperature control based on selected cooking styles, aka low and slow smoking or high heat grilling. They also have a power feed system that boasts a high torque auger motor that powers through all the pellets for incredible power and performance. The new Rider Deluxe series builds on several popular features, including smoke and sear modes, which feature an impressive temperature range that run from 200 degrees Fahrenheit to a searing hot 650 degrees Fahrenheit if you need it, and a 20-pound quick drawer hopper that allows unused pellets to be drained in seconds for simple storage, removal, and swapping of pellet flavors. Do I have your attention? Of course I do. Hit the website, oklahomajoes.com. Spell it out, oklahomajoes.com, or go to the main website. Click on the Oklahoma Joe's logo on the homepage, and we'll take you right there. You can see everything they got. Pushing the pellet grills this summer because, hey, they're pretty popular if you didn't notice. We are back with Malcom Reed right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Broadcasting live from the Barbecue Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
All right, welcome back to the Barbecue Central Show, brought to you by Rider Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's. And this portion brought to you by the Barbecue Guru, makers of automatic good temperature control technology, sellers of ceramic cookers with built-in power draft fans, and accessories to make your barbecue and grilling life easier. Visit bbqguru.com for more information or call them. 800-288-GURU. The Barbecue Guru continuing to be a breakthrough in barbecue technology. All right, it is the first Tuesday of a brand new month, and in the 14 past the hour segment, that can only mean one thing: a visit from the pitmaster of Killer Hogs competition team, and co-founder of How to BBQ Right, Malcom Reed. Hey, Malcom.
What's happening, Greg? Can you believe it's May already, man?
I would love to say I can believe it, but 5 months have evaporated quicker than I can believe. Remember, and this is coming from the guy that on the very first show of every year that turns new, I say that 2021 or 2022 rapidly coming to a close, and in the instant chat, people, oh, Rempe's being foolish. Well, guess what? We're now in the beginnings of May, so we only have 7 months less. We're in the middle of quarter number 2 already, so a lot to get through here this evening. How's the first 5 months going for How to BBQ Right?
Good, man. It's been fast. Memphis and May is always on our radar. I know you mentioned that we're going to talk about that here in a second segment, but when it gets here faster and faster every year, it seems like. So it's flown by, and grilling season's kicked off. For a lot of us, it never stops, but officially, I guess for everybody, we're in it. So I'm excited. I'm ready to go, and May's always a fun month.
The last 3 months, Malcom, we have been breaking down from start to finish pork butt, brisket, chicken, and tonight we are going to be covering ribs fairly in depth here, and that'll bring a close to the backyard edition of this. And then we'll talk about off air if we're going to do competition back-to-backs on this, or if we're just going to let it fish out from here and maybe revisit that down the line. However, in the open, I had made a statement that may or may not be controversial to some in the instant chat. Some people were agreeing me that I thought chicken leg quarters were the quintessential barbecue delight for me, but ribs would probably be right up there too. Where do you fall on that question?
Well, being from Memphis, we're rib town. So when I think barbecue, I probably, ribs first thing come to mind. But when you say barbecue chicken, it's that leg quarter plate, man. That's the one you got to have. It's seasoned up leg quarters, cooked low and slow, then glazed up at the end. And just like you mentioned, they get a little char on them sometimes. And that's what I, when you say it's barbecue chicken plate, it's always got to be the leg quarter.
Also, I think that can really delineate a true master of the flame. Anybody can make a average to below average chicken quarter. You can run it through the oven. You can cook it poorly on any type of open flame. And that's what it is. It's average to below average. But when you can deliver a top quality chicken quarter plate, to me, I at least have some confidence that anything else I'm also going to get there, either at a house or at a restaurant, is going to be better than average. You feel the same?
Yeah, I mean, I think that dark meat, man, it just stays juicier. You can push it a little higher, and you can cook that skin to where it does get bite through, and it's not just like chewing on a rubber band. I think that's why the leg quarters are inexpensive. I mean, they're a lot cheaper than breasts, so I think it just falls in place. And I mean, it takes some skill to cook it. It ain't just something you throw on the pit and forget. You gotta know what you're doing and get the flavors right. But I mean, it's just a quintessential barbecue when it comes to talking chicken.
Malcom Reed joining us here on the show. So now we're going to go ahead and get to talking about ribs all the way through. So as we've done with the other three, we'll start right in the prep phase. And even before that, we'll go shopping. So we're following you along whatever meat purveyor you're going to. What are you looking for in the store when it comes to ribs and throughout the options, spares, baby backs, loin backs, whatever you call them? What are you looking for in either of those?
Typically, I buy them. They come individually cryovac, or they come in 3-packs. If I'm at Sam's or Costco, I'm getting a 3-pack usually. But if I'm in Kroger, Walmart, wherever else, your local grocery store, usually you can find them individually. I personally like them individual because I can see both sides of that slab of ribs. I can tell if it's got a ton of fat on top of the meat side. I can tell if the bones are straight. That's what I'm looking for. You want your ribs to look good, so I'm looking for straight bones, some that don't have so much curve to them. I don't want to see super thick fat on top. I don't want to have to trim off too much, and we're left with a bunch of shiners on there from carving out fat pockets. I want a good balance, but I like to see the marbling too. And I'm like you. I mean, if I'm eating ribs, I'm going spare rib all day long. Now, whether it's a whole rack of spares or if it's a cut down St. Louis rack, I don't care either way. Usually, if I take the whole rack, I'm cutting it down myself anyway. I don't toss the rib tips. I cook those to the side, and they're good to eating on. But for, if you're serving somebody a rack of ribs, they're usually thinking they want that whole rack that's a St. Louis cut or even a slab of loin backs.
I've always
Being
found
in Memphis, we see a lot of loin backs.
Yeah, I've always found in those 3-packs, It's that middle rack that seems to be they've put all the crappy racks to the side, and as they make these 3-packs, they take one of those crappy racks and they stick them in between two decent ones because you're not going to be able to see it. That's like the magic Christmas gift. You either are gifted with 3 really great racks, or 2 are going to be good and one's going to be really crap, and you'd never had any choice of not picking it.
I think it must be an old butcher's trick or something. They do the same thing with pork chops. You get that family pack of pork chops, you're going to have some of those ugly ones up underneath. They put the show pieces on top.
So
aside, I like the ones that come individually. I mean, look for those. That's your best bet. You can get a feel of them and see what you're getting.
And I've noticed a lot more availability of those here over the last handful of years. It used to be definitely the 3-packs, I remember, and then it went down to 2. I was pretty okay because at least I could see a top and a bottom side of each rack and make my choice from there. But more and more, I do see the individual racks, especially in the bigger box stores like BJ's, Sam's Club, and so forth. So straight bones, not a lot of fat, all that. Is there anything else on the packaging that you're looking for or trying to steer away from?
I mean, I really like them to be fresh. Most of the times now, stores are getting in fresh pork. But if it has been froze, you can see a lot of pooling in that package where it's thawed out some. I stay away from those. I mean, I want that bright red, pretty color. I like to feel them to make sure the pack's good and tight, like the seal hadn't been broke, hadn't let any air in. Sometimes you can pick up a pack and tell. But I mean, I look at the dates too. You want fresh as possible. So I've always had the best luck with a fresh product with the freshest date you can find on it.
Do you have a favorite rib brand?
Well, it depends on what if I'm cooking at home, I'm not super picky. I'm going with whatever the store has, whether it's Smithfield, Prairie Fresh, IBP, Hormel. We see those. But if I'm cooking competitions, I mean, I've cooked some really good ones. The Compart Durox, a fantastic product. That new Prairie Fresh Prime that you see a lot of people cooking, those have been some really good ribs. And even some of the Smithfields, they've got some good ones too. So I'm not super picky right now. I'm just looking for something that's got decent weight to it. I like to have a pretty good size when I'm cooking spare ribs, I like that 2.75 and up, so that 2 3/4 pound and up rib. I want it to have some weight to it, some meat on the bones, where I'm not just cooking a thin slab of ribs.
And you want that thickness to be even across the rack, of course.
That's right. You hope it's in a set of spare ribs. You hope you get some evenness all the way. You're always going to have that thin end, but for it to carry that thickness all the way across, it's going to cook more even. You're going to get better quality out of that rack of ribs.
If somebody wants to bone out a little bit extra money at home, I know you said you do the Durox stuff for competition, but if they want to do it at home, what can they expect from a flavor profile difference off of whatever the commodity pork is?
Well, it's just richer. I think what a lot of that, those breeds of hogs, your heritage breeds of hogs have more fat, which leads to more marbling in the meat. So they get a little more flavor, but they're also a little more forgiving when you cook them. So you can push those ribs up a little higher in internal temperature and still have a juicy, flavorful piece of meat. Where you take just commodity pork, the flavor's been bred out of it. It's bred for speed and bred for leanness. A lot of times they're breeding them for the loins on them, which is where they make their money. So they don't have as much fat. They don't have as much flavor. So that's kind of what the trade-off is. And what that means is it'll dry out a little faster.
So now we have the ribs back at home. We're going to take them out of the cryovac. What kind of a trimming process are you in for when you're doing them for the backyard?
I always pull the membrane, so I don't like that membrane on my rib. So I'm going to take the blunt edge of a butter knife or a spoon or something like that, or a pair of catfish skinners, whatever you can grab that membrane with and yank it off. I'm going to take the fat off the top side, the meat side. Probably going to square that rack of ribs up. A lot of times it'll tail down to a thin end, like we talked about. Well, a lot of times I'll go ahead and knock that off, just because it's gonna cook to pieces anyway. So it's not really good eats. And you could do something else with it if you wanted to cook some pieces, or you were cooking, some of the tips. You could throw those in there and get some use out of those for flavoring beans or something like that. Make a little rib tasso or something like that. But that's about all the trimming I'm going to do to them. I'm not getting real crazy. I mean, I square them up. Competitions, we do a little bit more. We cut the racks down a little smaller because we're thinking of our box and our final product. But at home, it's just about making it to where it'll cook even on the pit. That's what you're looking for. So just shape it up a little bit.
On the bone side, depending on the spares that you get, you might have that flap of meat that's there. Are you a trimmer of that? And if so, I would assume you would hang on to that and cook it along with the rib tips.
I usually always take that. It's kind of like the inside skirt, part of that diaphragm muscle there. So I'll take that off. It's going to shrivel up and get rubbery on you by the time you get the ribs done. So there's really no point in leaving it on. So, I'll throw it on there, season it up with the tips or, include it in some, like, I like to make a little tasso ham for flavor and jambalaya and gumbo, stuff like that. So it works good for that.
In regards to taking the membrane off, Malcom, have you seen a trend afoot here recently where folks are voluntarily leaving the membrane on and saying, in the end, maybe it's not that big of a deal to take it off?
I mean, I had to notice, I don't know if I'd call it a trend. I think some people are lazy or they just don't know how to do it. It's not complicated. I mean, I've seen some guys where they'll score it with the knife too, so it breaks, but I don't see the advantage in it. It's basically a barrier on the backside, so you're not getting any seasoning on the meat. If you season that and you go to chewing on it, it's tough to chew up. So it's not like it just dissolves in your mouth. So I've always taken it off.
Have you ever injected ribs?
I've played around with it. I think you're better off brining ribs than injecting them because in just a couple hours you can throw the ribs in a solution and they soak it up pretty well because they're thin. It's not like you've got a whole shoulder, a whole big butt in there, and trying to get deep in the meat because we're only talking an inch or so of meat. So you can really penetrate that flavor with the brine and get it everywhere instead of creating these injection marks or trying to pull it when you're shooting it into them with the syringe.
When it comes to rubbing ribs, Malcom, how far in advance are you doing that?
Maybe 2 hours. I mean, I like it to sit on them a little bit, but what I've seen, like most barbecue rubs, we've got salt and we got sugars in them. That's usually the first ingredients in some barbecue rubs. So what that does, it acts as a curing agent on it. I mean, it works great for dry brining, but if you leave it on there too long, it's going to change the texture of your meat. So you'll start getting that hamminess to it if you put those rubs on too early. So, 2 hours is okay. I mean, you can put that on there, let them sit a little while, let them sweat, get your pit fired up, and then go to the pit. But I don't like to do it, overnight and then put them on the next morning. You can, but your rib's going to have a different texture to it. It's going to change it. Now, it's going to have a super deep smoke ring. Sometimes it'll go all the way across, depending on how much salt and how much sugar you have on it. But it will change the texture of the meat the longer you leave those on the rib.
I would assume the barbecue rub might be a favorite of Malcom Reed when he's rubbing his ribs, but are there any other brands out there that you like specifically?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of good ones. I mean, my buddy Heath Riles has got some really good flavorful ones that I like. Big Papa Smokers, first ones come to mind. Cosmos. I mean, all these guys are my buddies, so I kind of hype theirs a little bit. But I like a mixture of it all. I mean, I love using my stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think it puts some of the best color on any rub out there on them. But I'll play with combinations too. I mean, that Sweet Money rub from Big Papa's, that's won a lot of money out there, not just from me, but a bunch of people. So I know it's a good one.
Use any kind of binder for putting on the rub?
Most of the time, if I'm cooking at home, I'm not. Now, the contest, we will put a little light coat of mustard just to help that initial salt, pepper, garlic layer stick and help it start bringing out some moisture on it. It also, having that on there in a competition, helps you see the application of your colored rubs when you're putting them on to make sure you're getting them even. You're not leaving any bit of that meat uncovered. If you could see mustard, it knows, you're not getting it in the right spots. So I use it for that. But if I'm cooking it at home, man, I'm usually just running and gunning and doing something simple. I'm not getting crazy with it. I'm making eating ribs when I'm cooking them in the backyard. And it's really my favorite way to do it. I mean, just throw a rub on there, put some smoke on it, forget about it, and then when they're done, they're done.
Anything else as far as rib prep is concerned, or rubbing, or anything prior to going on the cooker that we haven't covered yet?
Just that short rest before, man. I think that's critical in starting that cooking process because it starts loosening up the meat, gets it ready to accept some smoke. let some of that moisture start coming to the surface and pull some of those flavors down in it. Once you start that process, you're going to end up with some good ribs if you just give it some time.
Malcom Reed joining us here on the show, talking all about ribs. You can, of course, find him over on YouTube, How to BBQ Right, or the website, howtobbqright.com. All right, so we've got everything prepped up, ready to hit the smoke, and now we're going to cook them. What do you run the cooker at to cook ribs, temperature-wise?
Now, that's a toss-up. There's all kinds of different temperatures you can cook ribs. The old 3-2-1 that everybody talks about cooking ribs, that's I don't know many people that do it, but that's a 225 temp. If I was going to do that, that's how low I would cook it. I've always been, depending on my cooker, around 250 for ribs. That's kind of been my little golden temperature there. But I've since started cooking them on a stick burner or a drum, and those pits just want to run at 275. So you cook a little faster rib at those higher temps. That's the one thing you kind of need to know about. You're going to get at higher temps, you're going to get that color faster. So your ribs are going to get darker. So you're not going to leave them on there 2 hours unwrapped. I wrap ribs unless I'm just cooking, some dry ribs, Memphis style, to eat at home. Usually I'm always wrapping with aluminum foil or butcher paper. I like the foil because it lets me add some additional flavor and get some liquid in there to kind of help them break down and get super tender. But the bark's not as good. So if I want a real barky rib, it's a lot like brisket. I'll wrap in butcher paper to preserve that seasoning and that, that texture we've got on the outside. It helps still get the moisture off of the paper and protects it from getting too dark, but it makes a nice, you still get all that flavor from your rub. So let's just shoot for 250, Greg. Let's say that. Let's stick with 250 today, and I'm going about 2 hours. Then I'm going to wrap them. I know that's a lot to throw in there and a lot of stuff to talk about. It probably doesn't clear a bunch up, but I could talk about it at all different temperatures.
Yeah, well, I think that's the one follow-up question that you just answered right along was, does a preferred temperature change depending on cookers? And the one thing that you had mentioned that I talk about beginners with all the time is knowing your cooker. And, what does that mean? Well, once you get it seasoned and it's kind of dialed in, you're going to find out that once you have that thing dialed in, it might not be that 225 that everybody talks about. It might want to live at 235 or 250 or 275 like you were talking about on the offset smoker, and then you as the cook have to make the adjustments on how to let that stay in the smoke uncovered and when you want to stick it in the foil. So depending on what cooker you have, obviously different temperatures are going to be where you want to shoot for, but we're going to stick with this golden 250 for conversation here this evening. From a wood smoke perspective, what do you like on ribs?
I like a little bit of pecan. I like a little bit of cherry. I like the color the cherry gives. It gives a nice little sweetness to it, but I like the mildness of the pecan wood too. Now, in Memphis, we burn a little hickory sometimes too, so if you catch me at a contest, I'm going to have all three of those. But if I'm cooking at home, I'm probably just going to burn a little pecan and cherry.
Is it regional where people would say hickory and pork, whether it be butts or pork ribs, is the quintessential smoke pairing, or is that widely regarded across the states as being the wood that most people would go with?
I think most wood's regional, depending on where you're at. It depends on what kind of trees are growing close to you. Some places might not have good hickory, but they've got oak or something like that. Out in Texas, they burn a lot of post oak and pecan. Georgia, they burn a lot of peach. Illinois, they've got a lot of apple. So it just depends on where you're at. But for us in the Memphis area, hickory's probably king. That's what we see the most.
Prior to going into the foil, are you a spritzer or a mopper?
Well, it depends. I kind of do, depending on my cooker and how that slab of ribs is cooking. I may not do anything to it. If the color's coming along, I'm cooking the color first, and that's what that first part of that cook is. It's about getting those rubs to kind of adhere to become one with that slab of ribs to make that texture on top of it. A lot of times if you keep them too moist, you're going to wash some of that off, and I don't want to have to apply any more seasoning during that first part of that cook. So a lot of times I don't do anything to it. But if my cooker's running a little hotter, or if it's, they're getting darker faster, I might spritz them with a little water. Of course, I've used mops or different things before, but I think just a little spritz bottle with water is your friend.
I have noticed that as I have learned more and more on ribs, and I used to be a big apple juice spritzer, I was wondering why my ribs were coming out darker than I was anticipating, and then I was finally able to put two and two together and said, well, that apple juice has sugar in it, and it's just starting to caramelize over the many hours of cooking here. As soon as I got rid of it, started using water or a little bit of apple cider vinegar and water instead, and then it cleared right up, and the color was right on point. So just a little tip for those beginners out there that might be wondering why their ribs are darker if you're spritzing with apple juice, because that is a common tip for a lot of folks to keep their ribs moist during the cook. As far as wrapping, we've talked about the butcher paper and foil. What are you putting in for liquid? Are you using parquet or real butter, or what's going in that wrap for you?
Well, if I'm cooking them at home, man, I'm just going to give them a little bit of vinegar sauce. Nothing that's super sweet. That's going to. I want some moisture in there. I want the acidity from the vinegar. I want some flavor in there, but I don't really need like the extra richness of the butter and all that. A lot of that's just for comps. In competitions, we've moved on from the parquet that everybody knows, the blue magic blue bottle. We've went to, using stick butter real cold because I think it holds up better and it kind of slows that rib down a little bit and it protects it from busting the bones as bad. But sometimes, I mean, if I was wanting to really cook a competition style rib at home, I might use some butter, but most of the time keeping it simple is the way to go. And they still turn out really good just with a little vinegar sauce.
You a internal temp checker for ribs to see doneness?
I used to not be, but now I'm a firm believer in it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're running ribs up, depending on the brand of rib, up higher than you would think. A set of commodity ribs from the grocery store is probably going to be done somewhere around 204 to 208 degrees. But some of these heritage breeds can go up. I've seen them as high as 216. So it just depends on how your cook's going and needing to watch it. With the butter that we've been using, you can tell it kind of gets to a point to where it has a smell to it. It almost starts browning. And usually when we can tell that butter's browning in the foil, those ribs are about where we want them. And usually it's around that 212 to 214, something like that, just depending on the rack. But at home, it's all about feel, a lot of it, but that Thermopin, man, it doesn't lie to you. When you learn to cook with a Thermopin, it does not lie to you. I don't think it makes you less of a cook or anything if you're using temperature devices. I use them all the time. I use aluminum foil all the time. I don't think it says I can't cook. I just think it means I'm using every tool I got to my advantage to cook the best piece of barbecue I can.
I think the thing that turned my ribs into the term consistency was when I got over myself and started temping the ribs. And as you said, the thermometer isn't lying. When you take it off at 204 or 206 or whatever that magic number is, and you go back and do that again the following week or the following day or 5 days in a row, and you're taking them off at that temperature, like, you know what you're going to be getting. That's why you can produce consistent results. That's what all the backyard folks want, consistent results each and every time. That's what the competition folks want. And what better way to do that than by knowing exactly what temperature you're getting that result at. So I'm with you. It doesn't make you less of a cook. It actually makes you a better cook in many different ways. So go ahead and start temping your ribs if you're not doing that right now. Anything else in the cooking process, Malcom, that we haven't covered yet?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it on ribs as far as the cook goes. I mean, you're cooking the color first. You're going to get them wrapped up, protect them, add some kind of liquid to them. I like to use a vinegar sauce if I'm just eating at home, but if you want to add juice, you want to add butter, you want to add honey, you want to add barbecue sauce, you can do all that to the wrap. But cook them until they're done. And you only know that by opening the foil up, verifying it with a thermometer, but you can look at them. There's telltale signs too. When you see the pullback, when you see the bones start to bust through, if you lift them up, they're pliable. They're fixing to break in places. That's how you know they're done. I guess the biggest thing I could tell you there is let that foil, or if you've got them wrapped up, like I like to do, we let them sit there on the table and rest about 5-7 minutes. Let that foil vent. And then we like to hold the ribs a little bit. It might be 30 minutes. It might be an hour. Usually ribs don't have a long hold power like say a butt or a brisket or something does, but you can get 30 minutes out of them easier. And what that does, after you've let the heat off of them and you cover them back up and set them in a dry cooler or Cambro, whatever you have, it lets them just kind of calm down. It's going to make cutting them easier. It's going to make them juicier when you go to take them out of that liquid and cut them on the cutting board. And I think it just, it lets everything come back together. Now we still put them back on and either finish them with a little dry rub for a dry style rib or hit them with a little sauce to glaze them up for more of a comp style wet rib. But they always get somewhat of a rest.
At home, Malcolm, sauce on side or sauce on the ribs?
If I'm eating them, I'm going to have it on the side and I'm going to have them dry.
Mm-hmm.
Little spicy rub to finish them with too. I like a little bit of heat on the rib, and I like that sauce to where I can dip it if I want it, but I don't have it smothered in it.
Anything else from a serving standpoint or anything we might have missed from start to finish here on the ribs before we transition over into Memphis and May?
Man, I don't think so. Ribs aren't difficult. I
Yeah.
think it's more of a process that you got to get down, and you hit it when you said learn that pit, depending on whatever temperature you want to cook at. Learn your pit, how to hold it there, and what those ribs look like at those different times. That's how you're going to get to be a better rib cook. It never hurts to have that thermometer handy at the end to get used to it, but it's a lot of feel too. You're cooking the color, you're cooking the tenderness, and then you're holding them a little bit. It's that easy.
Malcom Reed joining us here on the show, the pitmaster of Killer Hogs competition team, and of course co-founder of How to BBQ Right. HowToBBQRight.com is the website. Malcom, can I hold you over for 1 second and we'll talk about Memphis and May here on the backside?
Oh yeah, especially if I get some luck from it.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. Malcom Reed joining us here on the show. Stand by, and we'll be back with him here in just 1 second. I will talk to you quickly about Yoder Smokers, designing and building all of their products right here in the States, and building pride through craftsmanship and world-class customer service. It's the backbone of how we've built the company. This approach translates into what can be a truly bespoke style product that elevates gatherings with friends and family. Honored to have a trusted place in the backyards of America. From pellet cookers to wood-fired offset pits and charcoal grills, consistent blue ribbon flavor has been synonymous with Yoder Smokers' name. Make no mistake, Yoder Smokers' flavor-driven design is unique to each style of pit, and the team has developed their cookers to perform time and time again while outlasting the competition for generations to come. It's this generational thought that's rooted in the handmade products and defines the integrity of the core values: American-made quality and endless flavor. The benchmarks of Yoder Smokers, you can visit them at yodersmokers.com and ask questions there as well. Once again, the website, yodersmokers.com. And we'll be back with more Malcom Reed joining us on the Oklahoma Joe's hotline. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we are back on the Barbecue Central Show, brought to you by the Oklahoma Joe's Rider Deluxe Pellet Grills. And this portion brought to you by CookinPellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets. For all your pellet-driven cookers, visit CookinPellets.com for more information or to purchase or see what other products they have to make your food smoky and delicious. That's CookinPellets.com. And we are joined by Malcom Reed once again. So we've done all the 4 barbecue meats. So that's great, but it is May, and May for guys like you and a bunch of other men and women in the competition scene really look forward to May for a number of different reasons. A lot of people think that this is the beginning of a barbecue and grilling season, but more importantly than that, especially if you're competitors, this is the one that really kicks off the competition season. There's been a number of barbecue events already here in the first 4+ months, but Memphis in May is one of those majors. So as you recollect back on your time at coming to all these Memphis in Mays in years past, Malcom, what makes the event so special to you, and why do you think that it holds such a cachet with a bunch of the other competitors out there, regardless of sanctioning body?
Man, I think it's just, it's the Super Bowl of pork. So it's ever since I've gotten into barbecue, Memphis in May has kind of been the one that that stood out above all. We didn't, Kansas City style or KCBS wasn't really big in our area back when I started, or when Memphis and I was coming up. So that's all we knew. We knew it was a big celebration that people went downtown on the banks of the river. There's nothing like being in Memphis when you've got 300 teams down there and you can smell that smoke going up and down the river, and knowing that there's some good barbecue and a good time to be had by all. That's what it's all about.
What's the best finish you've had at a Memphis in May?
Man, we have finished everywhere in the top 10 except 1, 2, or 3. That's the best. I guess the best I ever had was in 06, our very first year. We cooked in the patio porker division, and that's when we won the grand champion there and had to turn pro. So that one will be one that's always special, because none of this would have happened if I hadn't cooked Memphis in May that year and, had a good finish. Who knows, if we'd come in dead last, I may have never kept up barbecuing. But we've been chasing Memphis in May for years, ever since that, that 06 year. And it's just something that me and Waylon said, we're going to keep doing until we can't do it anymore. So we love it.
What's it look like for a ramp up for this event? Because if folks have been around KCBS contests, and look, I mean, that's an FBA contest similar to KCBS, maybe St. Louis as well. You go to these events, and 10, 15 years ago, there was a lot of pop-up tents. There were some barbecue trailers that were also being pulled along, but they seemed to be a little bit more mobile get-ups than they are nowadays, where you have motorhomes. There's not a lot of people congregating out there. Mostly people have pull-behind trailers, Jambos, and assorted other big-named and big-dollar pits. What does it look like from a Memphis in May standpoint for the folks that have never been there? What's a build look like for you guys?
It's, so it's more structure. I mean, of course, you've got big tents, but if you think about Memphis in May, it's a lot like the Houston Livestock Rodeo, where they use it. A lot of it for entertaining. So you got this whole aspect of it, of where companies come in and they sponsor teams, and they have these big parties, or they feed and entertain people. And so you got that element of it in Memphis in May, but it's more of a festival too, because it's for the crowd. There's a lot of stuff going on that's for spectators to come and see. So you've got, private parties, but you've got public people walking through constantly, and then you've got the contest side of it. And what makes it really unique is that it goes on for the better part of a week. I mean, it's, we start loading in and setting up our booths at Memphis in May this coming Saturday, and the contest isn't until the following Saturday.
Wow.
We'll actually, Wednesday is kind of the first kickoff day. I mean, you've got Monday and Tuesday for setting up, but we'll start doing stuff on Wednesday, and then contests start. There's Thursday, there's wings and sauces and turkey, and Friday has all your ancillaries, and then the main pork categories are Saturday. So it's a week-long deal to build up to it.
How much practicing goes into a season, or not a season, but a Memphis in May contest? Or does that happen to vary by year depending on how busy you are doing other stuff?
It depends. I mean, I've got, Memphis in May is one of those ones where we bring it's a team effort. It's not just me and Waylon out there, me, Waylon, and Shell out there cooking. We bring in all, the buddies that want to be a part of the team, guys that cook with us over the years, some people that work with me here at the shop, and it's kind of a team effort. I mean, we'll bring 3 or 4 pits, and we let other people cook different categories. And then when it comes down to cooking the ribs, we've worked on that recipe for, all spring. I don't know how many slabs of ribs we've cooked already, but it's been a lot. And we're running, we've cooked a couple contests, just tuning up, seeing how the recipe would do. And then we've done practices here, and we're always tweaking a little bit. Now we've come down to where we're going to do one more practice Thursday, and that's going to be it. That's what we're running. So you're just fine tuning. I know we have a good rib, as we finished so well last year with it, and we've, won contest with it over this past year too. So the recipe is good. It's just executing there and seeing how it goes. I mean, there's a lot of luck in it too. You know how barbecue goes.
How many rib entrants are there compared? I mean, typically it's whole hog is way less than any of the other ones. It's ribs, and then it's pork shoulder otherwise. So do you know how many other ribbers you're going to be going against?
Yeah, I mean, typically it's skewed. There's 130 rib teams, usually, 40, 50 hog teams, and the rest are shoulder teams, which is usually about 60, 70, something like that. So it just depends year to year. They've been downsizing, and it's going to be a little different this year. I don't know if you know, but they're doing construction on Tom Lee Park, so they moved the barbecue festival, the Bill Street Music Festival, everything to the Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium area. They call it Tiger Lane, which is the old fairgrounds in Memphis. It's a great location. They have plenty of room there, so it ought to be pretty exciting.
How much of winning Memphis in May, of course, would be spectacular. But outside of that, how much of a benefit would that be to the business and the store and Malcom's brand to say that you were a Memphis in May world champ? Or would it not that make that big of a difference, you think?
I don't think it would make that big a difference as far as winning goes. As a personal accolade, I guess it's something, you'd like to have. I'm sure there's been businesses built on it before, but it's one of those things. We've done it so long. We've kind of already got a name recognized in the world of barbecue. It's something nice to have, but I don't think it would benefit me a whole lot. Other than I'd probably win about $26,000, and that'd be nice.
Yeah, money's always pretty good. Yeah, like what's the layout of expense for an event like that? Because that's not a normal contest either.
Yeah, no, it's pretty expensive. It can get as elaborate as you want it to. Ours, we're not doing any catering or any kind of big party planning or anything like that. So we don't. Basically, we've got our expense to get in, which is probably a couple $1,000 to get the spot and get the rentals and all that. But everything else, we just got to we'll buy our meat and cook some stuff for us while we're hanging out. So you could probably do it for between $5,000 and $7,000 on our scale. Which is still pretty good chunk of change for a contest.
That's a $20,000 clear after all expenses paid. That's not too bad.
That's right. Yeah. You win it all. If you don't, you're in trouble.
Yeah, then that's a $6,000 or $7,000 expense. What are you going to do? You write that off on the taxes. People just write it off. Whatever that means, you just write it off. All right, here we go. Most important question of the evening: percent chance that Killer Hogs comes away with the 2022 World Championship at Memphis in May?
I'm gonna say 99.9. I'm gonna go ahead and leave a 10th out there for somebody.
Man, oh man, hey, I love it.
I'm a winner going in. Now I don't know what it's gonna be like the next Saturday, but I'm a winner going in.
No doubt. Love the confidence. Love the confidence. That's Malcom Reed, How to BBQ Right, and pitmaster of Killer Hogs. Looking to take it all in a week from this coming weekend. So that would be like the 14th, 15th. So check Malcom out on social media, and you'll follow along with all the results as they're happening as well. Malcom, always appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing the barbecue roundtables, and we'll follow your potential, which we know will be success at the Memphis in May as well, and then we'll talk about it in July. Or June. We'll talk about it in June.
We'll do the halfway mark, Greg. We'll be halfway there. So.
All right. We'll see you then.
Have a good one, man.
There he is, Malcom Reed right there from How to BBQ Right, and the pitmaster of Killer Hogs, talking about his chances at Memphis in May. And if it's one thing I like, somebody that's going to come on the show, they're not messing around at all. I ask that people a lot. What do you think the chances are winning? There's going to be a lot of good teams. 99.9% Malcom Reed. I like it. Give me some of that. Malcom, of course, appearing via the Oklahoma Joe's hotline. Brought to you by the Oklahoma Joe's Rider Deluxe Pellet Grill. I have a sounder for that the really big voice guy just sent me in show, but I have to use my voice. Before we wrap up this first hour, though, I'll talk to you quickly about another great pellet cooker, Green Mountain Grills. As Smokin' Joe's Barbecue Pit said, the show is a pellet pimp, no doubt. We love the pellet cookers here on the show. Green Mountain Grills making some of the best pellet cookers out there on the market right now. If you want to save some money and you want a great cooker, why not take a look at that Davy Crockett? There is no Wi-Fi. There is no app ability. However, you'll save some cash. You'll get a great cooker. You'll be able to produce some great food. You'll have a lot of versatility with that unit. Now, if you want all that other stuff, you want the features or the added bling, if you will, internal meat probes, look into windows, Wi-Fi, app connectivity, all that stuff. Prime line, you want to look at it. Peak and Ledge are in that Prime line. It's all 12-volt technology, of course, power-wise. And the Ledge and Peak and the the Daniel Boone are fitting the pizza oven insert, which you need to get. Only sold through dealers, so find a dealer near you soon. GreenMountainGrill.com. Find the dealer, visit the dealer, get educated, pick the size that's best for you. Get the pizza oven insert because they probably have it at the dealer. And you will be successful right out of the box. Take it from me. Having the education piece first is almost a guarantee of success. It's great. Now you can visit GreenMountainGrill.com to get other stuff like rubs and other accessories to complete the Green Mountain Grill cooking experience if they don't have them at the dealer. But dealer first, GreenMountainGrill.com. That's GreenMountainGrills.com. We're back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rampey.
All right, welcome back to the Barbecue Central Show, being brought to you by the Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's. This portion being brought to you by Fireboard. Monitor up to 6 different temperatures on your Fireboard 2, Fireboard 2 Pro, or Fireboard 2 Drive. Connect to Wi-Fi for cloud-based monitoring, or connect via the Bluetooths. If you have Alexa or Google Assistant, you're at your home, you're in luck. Fireboard fully integrated with both. Find out more by visiting fireboard.com or call 816-945-2232. And I just talked to Ted Conrad the other day, and we are setting up when we will have the Spark giveaway, which is the single-channel Fireboard, but also a instant read meat thermometer as well for like $149 or $150 or whatever it is, so stay tuned for that. We'll be doing that maybe next week or the week after that. Somebody very familiar with Memphis in May, Michael Quisenberry. His dad was the king back in the day, as talking about how the original location has moved to Tiger Lane, I think Malcolm said. The drawback being that it is further away from downtown for those who want to go to Beale Street. Take an Uber. Sometimes you have to move location. Now, let's not get all American Royal with it and start moving locations every year and changing dates and all that stuff. They finally got that dialed in, but that was becoming a sense of angst through many barbecue competitors on the American Royal side when they moved it out of the stockyards, I think it was. All right, well, we thank Malcom Reed for joining us for the last 2 segments. If you missed it, if you're just tuning in now, we covered ribs from start to finish. So if you're looking to ascertain a new rib recipe, you're in luck because Malcolm laid it all out. Mostly backyard stuff. He did reference a few competition items, but if you're not a competitor, you don't really need to worry about that at all. So go back and get that podcast. It'll be up at some point tomorrow morning. And we are headed to the second hour, if you can believe it or not. We're going to have a great conversation with the longest-running embedded correspondent from Texas, Doug Scheiding. He has slowly and surely, and of course, taking years to become an overnight success on Instagram, has now accumulated 20,000 plus followers. And we'll talk to him about how he did that, the process, and if there are any seedy underbelly tactics that he has either done and tried and said, that didn't work, or was tempted and never did. Very tempting to grow your social media following by any means necessary, but who does it and who doesn't? We will ask Doug all about that at 14 past the second hour. I'm going to go refresh my libations. You do the same as you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show, brought to you by the Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's. Stick around. We'll be right back.
This is Doug Scheiding of Rogue Cookers, Texas embedded correspondent. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish, what?
He ate 54 wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It's the Barbecue Central Show, brought to you by Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's. If you missed the first hour, never you mind. We're recording. It'll be up on podcast tomorrow. This show, by the way, happens to cover all of the late-breaking, unfolding, potentially not even broke yet news and topics in the live fire industry. The show originating from Cleveland, Ohio, Bomb City, USA. I'm going to keep saying that because every week I'm getting emails going, why do you say Bomb City, USA? If you go and watch when I was a guest on the So Smokin' Gooder show, yes, that's the name of a show, on Facebook, we actually cover that and why Cleveland is known as Bomb City, USA. In fact, you could probably use your pal, the Googles, and do your own research and realize that Bomb City, USA isn't just something I've pulled out of thin air. It was a real title of this town for some time. Unfortunately, I might say. Still to come on this show, friend of mine, the longest-running embedded correspondent of the show from Texas, Doug Scheiding of Rogue Cookers. As I had mentioned at the close of the first hour, we'll be talking about his rise to Instagram prominence and all that went into doing that. It's been a while since we've talked about gaining a social following. If that's important to you, it is for a lot of folks, so we'll see how Doug has done that. Don't forget, you can follow me socially. It is important to me, but if I didn't have the show, it would not be important to me whatsoever. In fact, I would have zero digital presence if I didn't have the show, and you could take that to the bank. When the show leaves, I leave, and you will never find me again, unless you know where I live. Again, you can follow me socially at BBQ Central Show on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Snapchat. By the way, I'm not a guy that's going to plead for votes or plead for follow me here or follow me there, but at last check about an hour ago on the TikTokers, I had 998 followers. If any of you listening have the TikToks and you haven't followed me yet, I'm so worth it. I'm building value every week by giving snippets of the show that are just the best portions of the interview around a minute. And sometimes the guest was so good they get 2 or 3 snippets. I'm just trying to crest over that 1,000 follower mark. So perhaps me posting some Malcom videos tomorrow will help me get into the stratosphere of 1,000. But I've only been doing it for has it been 6 weeks? I don't know. You can go on and see when my first posting of prior interviews was. But it hasn't been very long, and maybe it's been 2 months. But getting to 1,000 the right way, posting, following Sean Walchef's advice from Digital Hospitality and Restaurant Influencers, digital storytelling, using all my available social platforms. So please follow me on TikTok if you haven't yet. I'm very close to 1,000. You would do my ego just a service. Aside from this stuff, you can watch the show live on Facebook and Twitch /BBQ Central Show, and also on YouTube /RD Rempe. We're live on Clubhouse as well, audibly, which we will play a game when Doug is on. I've gotten a lot of messages and emails here over the course of the last hour going, hey, it's the first Tuesday of a month. Where the hell is this Sam the cooking guy?
Get that big stuff out of here.
Well, aren't you keen on who typically appears on the show depending on what week of the month it is? You are right. In about 10 minutes from now, you would typically find the YouTube star Sam the cooking guy appearing on the show. However, because it is his 10th year anniversary of doing the show. Is it just doing the show on YouTube? Or has it been 10 years since he's changed the way the show was done, where they've gone away from anything live and really found their wheelhouse in that 3 releases a week and that 15 to 30 minute type cooking show? Him and his son Max, who was the producer of the show, if you will, are taking a 10-year anniversary trip together. They initially started in Dubai and I believe are ending in the majestic metropolis of Singapore. And they've been there the past week. They're actually coming back today, because right there now it is 11 o'clock in the morning, I believe, on the 4th, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe around noon. So there was an outside chance that he was going to try and do it, but there's airport connections and all this other stuff. I said, you know what, don't even worry about it. You're going to want to be just focusing on getting home anyway, so just forget it, and we'll catch back up in June. He said that'd be great. So that's why Sam is not going to be on the show next segment, because he's making his way back from a world travel to Dubai and Singapore, places that I would go.
Get that big stuff out of here.
You can get an ad-free podcast feed experience right now if you go to patreon.com/BBQ Central Show, or if you listen to the show through Apple Podcast, you can find this show, the Barbecue Central Show, and then subscribe right within there. There's a banner for ad-free experience if you want. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this Friday, episode 227, bringing you back to May 26th of 2015, and being featured this week as one of the pitmasters of a team called the Pork Brothers Competition Team. Mike Fritz was my guest. He and 2 of his other teammates were running the rib burner circuit back then. The rib circuit, much different than, let's say, a KCBS or an FBA or an SLBBQ or any of the 47 Texas sanctioning bodies that are out there. Really different than any barbecue sanctioning body. If you have the rib burn-off events that show up in your hometown, there were many back in the day here in Seatown. There's still a few big ones each summer. That is the rib circuit. They go festival to festival, city to city, state to state, pay pretty large entry fees, and then first and foremost, set up these ridiculous stands touting how great they are and how many championships they've won and whatever. And then most importantly, vend all weekend as many ribs as they can. $1 a bone, $5 for 3 bones in a cup, what have you. And at the end of the weekend, there's usually a People's Choice winner. Sometimes there's a local celebrity judge panel judging to proclaim a winner of that weekend as well, between those that are vending/competing. Really, when you strip it back, well, I'm sure everyone wants to win the weekends that they're competing. They all just really want to make as much money as they can vending their ribs. I think in the show that you're going to hear, they paid, I'm trying to remember now, was it $10,000? Or maybe there was 10,000 racks of ribs. There was a lot of money being paid, entry fee-wise, and there was a crap load of ribs being cooked for these festivals. Specifically one that we had talked about in Lima, Ohio, I think. Big entry fee, lots of ribs being cooked. And if lots of ribs are being cooked, they're selling lots of ribs. And that's what I think they all want, is to make as much money as possible. And then if they can grab a best of at Lodi or Lima or wherever the hell these are going to be taking place, that's fine too. I remember a guy by the name of Billy Bones. He was big on the rib burner circuit back in the day, early 2000s or so. And he told me one time that it was hard to get into the rib burner circuit. Spots were willed down to family members, kind of like getting a spot in the Houston Livestock and Rodeo. So you'll get a background on Mike Fritz, who happened to be, at the time, I don't know if he still is, a private jet charter pilot. And he talks about a few recent events that they had done at that point. So pretty interesting stuff. I think you get a kick out of it if you do this kind of a thing, which is listen to me on Friday on the Best Of. We thank John Solborg for putting that together. Don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or a segment that has been lost in the archives, email John and let him know what you would like to hear, JON at thebbqcentralshow.com, and let him know what you would like to hear. Upcoming shows over the next number of weeks and months include Robert Moss and Meathead next week. Mr. Jonathan from the Cigar Authority will make his triumphant return, and someone from the company Next Grill will make their first appearance at the end of the month as well, so stay tuned for those shows. Also, I had quite a conversation with a gentleman named Nick Cavuto. I had mentioned his book, Cigar Bliss, a couple of weeks ago about doing an hour-long show to help expand, refine, and hone our palates. It's going to be a great hour. We're going to take on a topic that we all talk about cursorily, but I don't know if anybody on any show has done a real deep dive and gone into the weeds of palate expansion, palate recognition, and palate development that we will when we do it. All coming up on future shows. Also, make a note on these dates. May 11th, which is a Wednesday, we will announce the 9 finalists for the Barbecue Hall of Fame. Also, 3 weeks after that, May 25th, we will announce exclusively on the show, unless semi-famous Dave Anderson blows his load all over our collective faces for 2 years in a row, the winners and or class of the 2022 Barbecue Hall of Fame. So stay tuned for those. And both of those will start at 3 p.m. Eastern on those corresponding Wednesdays, May 11th and May 25th. Doug Scheiding in the green room. Before we get to him, I'll talk to you about my pal David McDowell from Do Wellness and David Leans. The website, davidleans.com/BBQ. You know what I'm going to talk to you about right now, right? Are you sick of being fat? Fat? Yes. Do you know in your mind that you're done with this? You've committed in your mind, hey, I want to be healthier. But here's what I know. When I get down to the gym, when I get down to the basement, I'm not going to hold myself accountable. I need some other help. This is where David comes in for $200 a month. He's available 24/7 in essence. If you want to message him through text, if you want to video chat with him, if you want to call him on the telephone, ear to ear, if you want diet plans, he can make them for you. He can check in whenever you want to hold you accountable. It's great that you've achieved the first level of fitness, which is committing to yourself that you want to be in better shape. But now you got to get in better shape, and that's where people fall off the wagon before they're even on the wagon. Getting a person that will hold you accountable is what you need. Is investing $200 in yourself too much to ask? I don't think so. It's cheap. Some people are charging $500 a month for a canned diet plan and 1 to 2 check-ins a month. Forget about that. Team up with David. He's got your back, and if you put in the work and you're not happy with the results, he refunds all of the money. There's nothing to lose. Invest in yourself. davidleans.com/BBQ. That's davidleans.com/BBQ. We're back with Doug Scheiding right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we welcome you back to the Barbecue Central Show, being brought to you by the Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's. And this portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, my friends Amber and Noah Glanville. The most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet, currently available in 3 sizes with a host of accessories. If you're a beginner, if you're a professional, no matter, definitely a cooker you want to add to the arsenal, visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. My first guest in the second hour is someone you hear pitch in on this show the 4th Tuesday of every month, in the second hour during the Embedded Correspondent segment. He's the longest-running embedded correspondent from Texas. He is also a very accomplished competition cook, a world champ, as we would say, and a contractor for Traeger grills to boot. On top of that, he is a budding social media maven, especially when it comes to the Instagram. So, thought it would be a fun segment to talk a bit about how he has built his following to over 20,000 followers as of this past Monday evening at Check. Very impressive, to say the least. So we race to the Oklahoma Joe's hotline and welcome in the Rogue Cookers pitmaster, Doug Scheiding, joining me here on the show. Hey, Doug.
Good evening, Greg.
How are you, pal?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me. I've got big shoes to fill. Sam, the cooking guy? Oh, my gosh.
Well, you know what I just thought of off the top of my head here?
What?
One of Sam's favorite parts of the opening of his segment is playing the game, What Does Sam Like Best? Do you want to play in his spot, What Does Doug Like Best, if we go to the clubhouse? Yes. Yeah, you want to do that?
Let's do it. Let's bring somebody on.
Let's bring somebody on. I'll go ahead and see if Robert Salazar is interested, or Johnny Maggs is also in, and Joey Bastone, or Bastone, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly. So we'll see who jumps on, and we will give it 1 second here. And
the last time you played with Sam, you had some good questions.
I know. Well, guess what? They're going to be the same questions, but we got a whole different person here. So, hey, Johnny Maggs, you in?
Good evening, Greg.
Hey, there he is. Johnny Maggs from Pit Life Barbecue. Doug, you know Johnny Maggs, of course. So,
yeah. Hey, Johnny, how are you?
Good, Doug. How are you?
Thank you, sir. Good.
All right. So let's just go ahead and get right to it. John, you know how to play the game, right? I'm going to ask Doug a question. He's going to tell me, and before he unveils what he likes best, you are going to guess what he likes best. That's why we call it, What Does Doug Like Best? So, without any further ado, question number 1, you got to get the best 3 out of 5. Of the 2, John, who does Doug like best? Putin or the devil?
Ooh. I'm going to roll the dice on this one and go the devil.
All right. The devil. We'll lock him in. Doug, who do you like better? Putin or the devil?
He's got it right. The devil.
All right. Well, we have a little bit of momentum going on right here, which we certainly love. Second question. Johnny Maggs feeling it. When it comes to getting barbecue at a restaurant, what does Doug like best? Sauce on the meat or sauce on side?
Sauce on side.
Ooh, very quick with that. Lock him in. Johnny Maggs says sauce on side. Doug, what do you say?
I do like the sauce on a meat as a glaze, but at a restaurant, it would be on the side. He's got it
right. Look at this guy, Johnny Maggs, doing very well for himself. Could be the first time we have won in all 3 right off the bat. It has always gone to 5 for whatever reason, and this is the question that always trips people up. Question number 3. So, Johnny, hold on to your hats here, and we'll see if you can pull it off. Between the 2 wines, and Doug is a wine sommelier. Of the 2 wines, Johnny, what does Doug like best? A fine Viognier or a fine Merlot? And I happen to know, Johnny, that unlike Sam, Doug knows what both Viognier and Merlot are, and he's probably had bottles of each. Not just today, but in his lifetime. So what do you think, Johnny? Viognier or Merlot?
I'm going to go with Merlot.
Merlot, okay. Is that because you don't know what Viognier is?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll lock him in. Doug, Johnny says you like Merlot. Do you prefer a fine Viognier or a fine Merlot?
Well, you know, in Texas, we do grow a lot of Merlot, as some people say, or Merlot. But Viognier is much better, especially in the Texas heat.
Oh, wow. Question number 3, holding its course and steering this ship directly off of where we want it to go. We'll go to question number 4. Don't worry, Johnny, you can piss this one away, and you still have another one to potentially win a prize that I don't know what it's going to be yet. But here's question number 4. What show does Doug like best? Friends or Seinfeld?
Seinfeld.
Quick on the answer. Doug, Friends or Seinfeld? Or are we going to question 5?
I know. I hate to break the trend, but I was not a Friends fan. I liked Seinfeld and I liked the humor. So, congratulations, Johnny.
Wow. Look at this. Well, Johnny Maggs has done it. He has won. What does Doug like best? And he's done it in 4. I didn't know if we were going to press to 5, but John knows Doug a little bit better than most. So congratulations. John, go ahead and send me your shipping info, and there's a very good chance you might get an advanced copy of Sam's new book, Between the Buns, or I might substitute that out, but you might get it. Send me your address, Greg at thebbqcentralshow.com, and we'll get you hooked up.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for playing. There he is, Johnny Maggs, right there. Host of the Pit Life Barbecue Show. And from everybody here at What Does Doug Like Best, we wish you adieu. All right, enough of that. That was fun, right? I like that.
Yeah, it is.
All right, well, let's take down the fun right now. What do I mean by that? That means, of course, there is something else that's going on here before we get to the social media mavenness.
I hear the toilet going for some reason. I don't know why.
Last week, season 3 of American Idol's Barbecue Central show debuted. I sang, Doug sang, John sang, Rusty sang. Of course, it appears the only one here tonight is Doug. That's not good. Now, I did ask Doug to come on the show to talk about social media. This was not a ruse to draw him out to deliver bad news, but because I know a number of folks were wondering how the first week of voting was going to play out, we'll make it short and sweet. It was a breakneck battle for second and third place between Rusty and myself. Rusty came in second place. I came in third place by 10 votes. John, boat racing the field, and it was out of hand by Thursday. I kept waiting for a onslaught of weekend votes when people would take in the show, cutting the lawn or whatever, feeling compelled to vote. And while a number of votes did come in, nobody was putting John lower than second place. And quite the opposite was running, unfortunately, for the longest-running embedded correspondent from Texas. A lot of people putting Doug in fourth place. I didn't see it myself. In case you missed it, this is what last week sounded like.
Oh, do we have to replay?
I like it.
There is a fortune waiting to be had. You think I'll let it go, you're mad. You got another thing coming.
All right, stop what you're doing, because I'm about to ruin
Here's
the
Rusty.
image and the style that you used
Oh, yeah.
to.
Second place.
But yo, I'm making money. See, yo, world, I hope you're ready for me. Nick, do the Humpty Hump. Do the Humpty Hump.
Open up your eyes, shut your mouth.
Third place contestant. That's me.
Still the only one who's been in love with me. She's an angel. Holy angel. She's an angel.
Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the time.
Number 1, boat racing the field.
Welcome to the final show. Hope you're wearing your best clothes. Just stop your crying, it's a sign of the times. We gotta get away from here.
All right, that's how the week sounded last week, and as you heard it trailing out on the recap, John nailing all of us to the wall. Listening back to it, Doug, what did you think about going out in the first round, your efforts, and what do you think you could have done better?
Well, I agree with your question to Jose that I was a little buried in my music. I think that was a proper question. So when I re-listened to it, I thought I could have been a little more vociferous. But I thought, obviously, I proved that I'm better as a vocal backup, not a lead singer. I've done this for the third season in a row. Although I have gotten through, I think the first year I got through the first round. So, and I thought John may have overthought things a bit. Playing to one of the judges, as he said, but I thought he was potentially vulnerable this week. So, I personally thought you and Rusty were the best of the week. So,
all right. So John moves ahead, I move ahead, Rusty moves ahead, and unfortunately, we bid adieu to Doug Scheiding here, but he will be back next or at the end of this month as a judge, so he can hammer us accordingly. By the way, this coming in from Kent Vander Weird, Vandy Weird. Wow, Greg's still using auto-tune. Sorry, pal, not using auto-tune. I don't know what you're talking about. But that's not allowed. I'm flattered that Kent would think that I'm using auto-tune, but that's my real voice. There's a little reverb on there probably, but there is definitely no auto-tune. I have instructed the official sound guy of the Barbecue Central show, Haniel Trisna, to not use auto-tune when he's mixing the tracks, so definitely no auto-tune there. Sorry, Kent, that I'm a really great singer as recognized by Jose from 3 Years Hollow, and probably you're not. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
But listen, I got accused of auto-tune, I think, in season 2 by one of the judges, the female judges, to be specific.
Yeah, rule number 1 of the show for the female judges, of course. No names, please. So anyway, we're through the game show. We are through the results of the first month of the Barbecue Central show's American Idol edition. And that brings us to topic at hand, which is talking about social media and specifically Instagram. So, Doug, when did you originally start messing around with social media in general, and what were the platforms you thought were initially hot and you wanted to gain traction on?
Well, initially I joined Facebook, just, my age group, I guess, and that's just what we joined, and I actually kind of prided myself in the early part of my barbecue career of never having really posted as for myself personally, and then when I broke off on my own and I formed my Rogue Cookers Facebook page, then I started posting a little bit on there. But prior to that, I didn't post much. I got on Instagram just because I started liking that from the standpoint of I like the pictures and less of all the stories that went along, and I like the short and sweet kind of posts, and I like the pictures, and I think of myself as somewhat of a junior photographer, always have, and so that actually kind of interests me. So I would post periodically, once a week or something like that in the early goings. Probably joined, I don't know when it was, 2014 or so. Yeah, 2014.
Was there a point when you saw social as a potential benefit for barbecue stuff?
Absolutely. I was when I signed on with Traeger in 2015, and of course Traeger was about the grassroots and getting a lot of the Instagrammers and things like that. And so they encouraged me to post more and to gain a few more followers so that I at least seem somewhat respectable from that standpoint, from an influencer standpoint. So I'd post maybe once or twice a week and got a few followers here and there, but I didn't concentrate on it at all.
As I had mentioned in the open, your Instagram account specifically has really risen dramatically. Did you decide at some point to make IG not your complete focus, but the one that you are going to be focusing on the majority, and then perhaps the other social media platforms? If you could share a post as you were doing it on Instagram, you could just kind of include. Did you make a concerted effort for IG?
Absolutely. I actually remember the moment. Someone made fun in a training class. Someone at Traeger made fun of how many followers I had at a training class. Yeah.
Wow.
And his name rhymes with Chad Ward, but so Chadley.
How dare you!
Come on, Chad.
Yes. Oh yeah, Chad. I don't even know if Chad knows this or not, but he was like, oh yeah,
old boy
we need
knows.
to get everybody. Oh yeah. He goes, and maybe he knew it'd kind of get under my skin. And he goes, yeah, we need to get the 55 people in here to follow him, and that'll double his followers. And maybe at that time I had 1,000 or something like that. And I was like, okay, I'll take that as a challenge. And so that was probably October of 2019 or so. And in January, I decided in January of 2020, I was going to start posting every day. And, so I don't, I cook on pellet cookers with the Traegers, but I feed the Instagram beast every day. And it's a beast. It's just like an offset cooker. You've got to feed it and, decide what you need to do that day. What type of post and things like that. So within the first 2 months, I was up to 2,000. So I know I was at 2,000 February of 2020.
You're kind of breaking it down for us at the moment, and I'm sure many of us desire to have 20,000 plus followers waiting for us to post our next Instagram story or Instagram post, and it's not luck. In your case, as you had just mentioned, it's something that you're doing. Was it ever a thought of trying to figure out where a algorithm was in order for you to manipulate it to gain more followers more quickly, or some other nonsense like that? Or what else were you doing on top of just feeding the beast to yield results, or was that just it?
No, the algorithms are always, a mystery, and they're allegedly always changing, et cetera. So early on, I was told basically that you need to post kind of the same time every day. So I would typically post, and I still do typically post at about 5 or 6 in the evening, and post every day at that time frame. And one of my partners, I'm partnered with Traeger, but also Head Country, and Natasha is one of the marketing people there. And I call her my muse, from the standpoint of she knew a lot of these different avenues and things to do and she kind of gave me some guidance in the beginning. And so I would take those to heart, and I would actually start doing some of the things that she said. And that actually kind of helped me get more excited about posting every day, and not thinking of it as a chore, but something fun to do, like educating people. I think Sean has said it before. It's about educating other people. It's not really posting about yourself all the time. And so it's just a different angle to take things. And that was the same thing that Tasha had told me.
By the way, if you are not following Doug on Instagram, you can find him over there at Rogue Cookers, and he's happy to have you follow him if you're not doing that currently. Doug, let's go ahead and stop here just for a second, because we ran through some of that first segment with the various games and results shows, and then we'll come back, talk a little bit more about social media and how you've been growing that. We are talking with Doug Scheiding from Rogue Cookers. I will talk to you quickly about Primo grills, right? So what do we love about ceramic cookers? We love that they're fuel efficient. We love that you can achieve low and slow temperatures for traditional barbecue meats. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot and do the grilling of steaks and other thin cuts. But what's missing in the everyday ceramic cooker lineup? The real ability to do true two-zone cooking. Two-zone cooking is very important to both professionals and backyard cooks. It's the best way to manage a fire and cook with confidence. However, getting a two-zone fire on a round ceramic cooker, not very realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo Grill and the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a two-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. Really, when you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. If you're somebody that likes accessories, they have them. A lot of the most traditional accessories, all the way to things like the Primo Grill rotisserie. They also have a Primo Grill pizza accessory. They have a drip tray that can be used as a half. They also have the rib rack that can do 6 or 7 racks of spare ribs. And they're coming out with more and more each month. Here's the bottom line. Best ceramics in the biz, yes. Patented technology, yes. True two-zone cooking capabilities in multiple sizes, yes. And if you just have to have a round ceramic cooker, they have those as well. But really, all things considered, choose the oval. Be a trendsetter in the neighborhood. Let everybody look at that thing and go, wow, that thing is shaped really cool. I'm going to get one too. Only sold through dealers, just like Green Mountain Grill. So go to primogrill.com and find a dealer near you and check them out on Facebook and Instagram. I know I'm ready for a Primo. You're probably ready for one as well. Check it out. primogrill.com. And again, follow on Facebook and Instagram. We'll be back with more Doug Scheiding from Rogue Cooker right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the #1 most downloaded barbecue and grilling podcast anywhere. The Barbecue Central Show. Celebrating over 10 years of prolific and unparalleled live fire barbecue and grilling talk. And yes, it's still being done from Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
And this portion being brought to you by Smithfield. Head on over to smithfield.com right now for recipes as well as tips and tricks from well-known live fire cooks like Darren Worth, Jess Pryles, and Childs Cridland. Mouth-watering flavor, no artificial ingredients. Smithfield Fresh Pork is quite simply some of the finest pork money can buy and the trusted choice of top cooks for use at competitions at home and on the competition scene. And we welcome you back here to the Barbecue Central Show, which is being brought to you by the Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe. And we are rejoined by Doug Scheiding as we're breaking down his rise to social media prominence on Instagrams. So, Doug, when do you realize or see that you were was getting traction? In other words, you're going along, slow, steady growth, and then all of a sudden, are you noticing that you are growing at a much higher rate all of a sudden?
Yes. One of the things, Danielle DVQ actually helped me a few times. And one of the things she said, stories are free. She goes, they're free exposure, because I would never do stories. I'm like, why would I do stories? And she goes, oh no, it's free. She goes, people, that's getting additional exposure for you. And if you've got people that have a lot of followers, and 20,000 is good, and so it's actually very good, but it's not 100,000 or whatever. But I always just set goals. I wanted to get to 5,000. That was a big number. 10,000, etc. So if you've got friends that have a lot, have them comment on your posts. I started seeing more traction when if I make a recipe. One of my, these are some of the strategies that I would do, from hashtags as well as tagging. So tag the grocery store that you bought it from. Tag some of the items that you included, whether it's 505 Southwestern, green chilies. I've actually started having a little bit of a relationship with them, just because I like green chilies and I love their products. So all the products that I tag are ones that I've used and I would put in my pictures. So I'm pretty specific about tagging, and I used to be somewhat judicious in that, but now I'll tag companies, a lot of companies. I won't over abuse and tag, let's say, even the Barbecue Central Show or friends or things like that, just because that can be annoying on the being tag side, because some people actually, if you tag them, they'll actually remove the tag, and so I don't want to annoy people, but companies love it. You can go in and certain, let's say, target markets that you have. So obviously we're in the market of barbecue, maybe yourself, podcasts and things like that. So if you've got certain targets in areas of interest, mine are barbecue. I've branched off into wine to a certain extent, and bourbon. And so I've actually targeted some people in those different in those different areas. And then most recently, a little bit in baseball. So those are my areas that I actually concentrate in, and I will tag some people, some influencers in that, and develop a relationship with them, and carry on some conversations. And then through those tags, I'll actually get tagged from them when they post something. So I will go in, if I get tagged in a post, I will always comment, and then I will always, at least at the time that I look at it, go and like everybody that's actually commented on that. And that's actually helped people come over to my page. And some people would do it, just on large posts that get a lot of comments. They would go, I call it tag bombing. They would just go and like, or like bombing. They would just go and like, and sometimes Instagram only lets you tag like 2 minutes or something like that. But if you've got certain target areas, go to hashtags, hashtag barbecue, and start tagging a bunch of people in there. That'll actually take you. They're like, when they see it, like, who's liked my comment and who is this person, they'll actually go and visit your page. Some of those people will. So that'll actually draw and bring some people to your page as part of the process. So those were some of the things that I did in the beginning. And then if someone comments on your post, always reply back, and it always comment, even if they put, for, fire, if they only put emojis, let's say, I'll respond back with emojis most of the time. But if they put some sort of comment, I will comment, and I will use some words in some shape or form.
That's
so
driving
that's
engagement, right? I mean, that's showing that if somebody is just visiting your page from tag, they go into some of your posts, they see who's commenting on you, and then they see you're an active person that likes to interact with the people that are commenting on you. That shows that you have an interest in your base.
Absolutely. And some of the new people, even if they comment, I'll actually go and look at their page. I take the time and go look at their page, and I go check out their page, and maybe I'll even comment or like a few of the things that they have. And that actually drives people. They'll more likely to follow you in that case, if you've actually taken a step to go to their page. And sometimes they'll even, call people out by name as well. And just, hey bro, or, thanks, and dude, and that kind of stuff. So I'll go and actually try to comment on their name and remember their name. So some of the ones that don't post it, I actually have a list of names that sometimes that I don't remember exactly. So I have a list, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that's Misty.
Doug Scheiding joining us here on the show from Rogue Cookers, talking a little Instagram inside info here. Doug, in past conversations with other social media stars, I've heard from them to keep business accounts business and to have personal accounts as standalone in order to not confuse the people consuming your content. Are you a subscriber to that mindset?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Unless it relates to baseball, wine, or barbecue or bourbon. Those are the 4 topics I will post. So like when we went to some wineries last week, I posted that because, we go to the Santa Barbara Wine and Barbecue Festival every year. So that to me is, okay, related, etc. But if I'm just, a regular post or something like that, I'll post it on Facebook if I care to. But I don't overpost too many personal things on my page. It's all related to kind of barbecue in some way, shape, or form, tip, recipe, etc.
So let's talk about the pictures that you take. As you said, you fancy yourself to be a bit of an amateur photographer. So what gets the most reaction from your fans or followers, and what kind of filters or enhancements or edits do you make before going into post?
I will, the big meats, just from a barbecue standpoint, the big meats, brisket, steak, burgers do well. I did a couple of pork butts a couple of days ago that, those do well as well. So, and then I always try to get, like a close up and maybe, something in the background that's kind of a little bit of blurry and things like that. And this, a lot of times it's the lighting as well. So I'm always, even when we go to restaurants and stuff, it's hashtag phone eats first. The phone eats first, So in our surety question, I think it was last week, I paused and hesitated on that because I do rest for the phone to eat first, but it's not a specific amount of time, and it drives my wife crazy. But if the phone doesn't eat first, we eat right away. But anyway, so I will take a look at the pictures, and I will edit them from a standpoint of light and sometimes the saturation. Not too much on the pop and those sorts of things, and the standard filters, I don't use those. So usually the Ludwig and all that stuff, I used to use that in the beginning, but I don't. I think you have a little better control if you use the manual filters. The blue tones, the skin tones, the black and white, and those sorts of things, and saturation. So I think I try not to oversaturate it, because my wife said for a while I was doing too much saturation and things, and so I try not to do it, but I do try to enhance it just a little bit.
As you are getting to 20,000 plus followers, has there ever been a temptation or a trial to go to some website and buy 8,000 followers or 10,000 followers? And if you had thought about it and then never pulled the trigger on it, what deters you from doing that?
It's cheating. It's just downright cheating, and it just goes against my moral, but
so here, let me rephrase this here for a second. So,
all right, let's talk about it.
I get all of that, right? But perhaps there's a large majority of folks out there speculating that are looking to leverage their social media into something else. And while their moral compass might say, well, buying 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever the amount of money you're going to pay for whatever amount of followers you're going to get is cheating, they see a different end game in mind, which is the majority of folks who are at brands who are probably scouring social media for people that have X amount of followers or more that they consider to be real social influencers just due to amount of followers. That if they can get there by any means necessary, maybe they can get something for free, or maybe they can make money by promoting a post, because they are now hoping that who's ever in charge of finding these people aren't really going to get into the nuts and bolts of what their following actually looks like.
Yeah, to me, it's pretty easy it's engagement, right? You go and look at someone's Instagram account and don't just base it on one or two posts. Go and look over the last week or so and see how often they're posting, who's engaging, and what type of comments are there. There are companies out there that, and I've just kind of really learned about this in the last 6 months or so. There's companies out there that apparently they will pay people, or you can pay them, and they'll have people actually engage on that. So it's much harder to figure out that your followers.
A new level of cheating. I love it.
It is.
Wow.
It's incredible to me. But so no, I mean, I think it was, when was MBBQA up in Fort Worth? Was that in like 2019?
2018.
I think 2018. Okay, so that was when I first got into Instagram, and Danielle was there, and she and Chad were actually talking about the fake accounts and people buying, and it was all new to me. And so yeah, Danielle was very opposed to it, and so now I understand why now, because the people that genuinely follow you are the ones that genuinely follow you. Now, having said that, I will, because I believe this goes to the Instagram algorithm, if you will, I throw them some chum. I'll do a few sponsored posts. So if I you can do it in Facebook as well with a business account, et cetera. If I've got a post, and back maybe it was a year and a half ago, man, I used to get 500-600, maybe even 1,000 likes on pictures. Now somehow they've tuned it down, and you only get 150 or 200, let's say. But if I get a post that does 200, 250, 300, I'll actually sponsor that one and throw it out there, and I might get 300, 400, 500 now, and I'll actually get a few followers off of that. Now, some of them may go away after a while, and you can look at that, but the general plus is that, you know, I might get 50 to 100 followers off something like that on a good post, because a good post is a good post. And if your base is liking it, then other people, and you can target it depending on, you can go after different target markets, you know, barbecue, hamburger, steak, whatever, and you can customize it. So I'm not opposed to doing something like that, and I think the Instagram algorithm looks at that if you're actually, you know, paying. You know, it's like a wine, you know, speculator is, you know, the Wine Spectator magazine. If you advertise, you got a magically an article in the you know, said with peace and love.
Of course,
but,
always.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
There you go. Thanks, Rango. Appreciate it. So, you know, I think that's part of the algorithm. So I think that, you know, that's something that I do. Some people are even opposed to that, but that whatever. But I actually upset, I think, the algorithm, because once I reached 20,000, I would take a day off here and there and stuff. And so my trajectory has actually slowed down a little bit. And so now I'm back to posting the last few weeks. I would take Monday off, and I don't think that helped, because since the beginning of the year, it's probably 500, you know, 500 different, you know, plus 500 followers. One of the effects I want to say is probably the biggest, when Diva Q has posted a, you know, hey, go follow me early on. I got, you know, maybe 100, 200 people, etc. The largest one, other than, you know, my partners Traeger and Head Country early on, but was when Matt Pittman of Meat Church, he called me up during it was the beginning of COVID. He went to the lake house, you know, in March or so, when we were all quarantined and stuff. He made my queso like 3-4 times. He goes, "Hey, I'm gonna make a queso video. Is that something, you know, is that okay with you?" He goes, I said, "Yeah, just as long as you tag me." He goes, "It's a great recipe. I got almost 1,000 followers in about 2 weeks from that."
Wow.
It was, you know, I call it the Meat Church bump, but and that's when we shut down the Facebook page on Big Green Egg, where, you know, they said don't make any queso posts, any individual queso posts, only a post on the first one of the day, because everything else was getting lost. It was crazy. But yeah, if you've got, you know, some people that, you know, like that, if they'll, you know, repost your stuff or do something or tag you, that's actually something. So that's good. So and some of that is just goodwill from a barbecue standpoint. So I'm willing to talk to almost anyone. So in fact, right before we got on, a guy from New Zealand was asking me what other Mexican sauces that he should start making, because he's mastered all these different. So I get 4 or 5 of those a day, but that's just part of the digital hospitality and, you know, spreading the barbecue love, as, you know, some people say.
Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue wants to know if any famous people follow you. I'm going to venture to say that would be outside of who we would consider to be famous in the live fire world, but any celebrities or anybody like that? Kim Kardashian or Mike Tyson?
No, you know, you know, probably it's just, you know, mainly barbecue people. And, you know, now actually, because of my guest hosting on the baseball and barbecue, you know, for the 79th time, I get some of the, you know, Steve Traxel and some of those people and stuff. So, but, you know, yeah, I don't know. At the last Traeger event, you know, Ken Griffey Jr. was there. Junior was at the event and stuff, and people were, you know, mobbing him. That's just not my style. I don't do that. So I just, you know, went and talked to him and although I think Ian Rappaport, thank you, follows me. So yeah, he may follow me as well, but the NFL Insider and stuff. But yeah, so, but yeah, I'm not a fanboy on that kind of stuff. You know, they're regular people just like the rest of us, and so I don't really do that.
We all put our gold line slacks on one leg at a time, and it's usually the left leg first. No doubt about it. Doug Scheiding is breaking it all down for us here when it comes to social media, especially on Instagram. If you are one of the 20,000 plus following him, you know the content he is providing to you. If you're not following him, hurry up and do it at Rogue Cookers over there on Instagram. Doug, really appreciate the time this evening. Oh, go ahead, hurry.
Can I? Okay.
Yes.
Some don'ts. Don't over tag people. So if you tag people, don't over tag your welcome. And send a message. Don't send a message to someone that you want to exchange follows. So, okay, Greg, I like you. Oh, hey, I'll follow you. And literally, I'll get a message. I'll follow you if you follow me. No, that's not what I'm going to do. And then from a account integrity standpoint too, my magic number, because it's a magic number, is 1111. That's the number of max followers I will have. So if I go to 11, 12, whatever, I'm going to go call out some and get rid of a few. So don't follow too many people. A lot of people will build their account because they'll have they're following 7,000 accounts. You can't keep track of that many. There's no way possible. So, and then they'll have, 5,000 followers. Okay. All right. That's to me, that's yeah, I just wouldn't do it because you're not really utilizing the power of Instagram and getting to know people.
That's right. So those are some don'ts. So if you're trying to be successful,
yes,
adhere to the don'ts, do the do's, or as Chuck Blount would say, do the do's. And you can get 20,000 plus followers just like Doug. Doug, really appreciate the time, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me.
There he is, Doug Scheiding, right there from Rogue Cookers. And as we had mentioned, if you're not following him, do it. Doug appearing via the Oklahoma Joe's hotline, which you will hear by the really big voice guy starting next week. I will talk to you quickly about Big Papa Smokers, and then we will end the show. The one-stop online shop for all things barbecue. By the way, shout out to Sterling Ball for a Reserve Grand Championship finish this past weekend at the competition he was at. Everything at BigPapaSmokers.com has been Pitmaster approved by Sterling, Big Papa Ball himself, from the award-winning rubs and sauces to the American-made grills and smokers. We all know the rubs, right? Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, Double Secret Steak Rub, just a few of the 13 perfectly balanced flavors that will transform ordinary meals to extraordinary. Also owners of Granny's Barbecue Sauce, so if you're tired of what's out there currently, you want a new go-to sauce, check out Granny's. It reminds you of why you fell in love with barbecue in the first place. Now they're selling cookers, and we knew this. Are you looking for a versatile smoker that's easy to use? Check out that Mac 2-Star General Pellet Cooker. Big Papa Smokers, the exclusive Mac dealer, even offering special packages. If you're not sure of what grill you need, call them, won't you? Ask questions. They'll steer you in the right direction. 877-828-0727. That's 878-0727. You can shop their website at bigpopsmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA smokers.com. We're back to wrap the show right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Whole packers, full racks, legs and thighs, injecting butts. If you've never heard this before, you might think you found the best XXX show ever. Let's get back to the most homoerotic host out there today, Greg Rempe.
And this portion being brought to you by Vortic Watches. Back in the day, watches were made to be worn in the pocket. After World War II, the wristwatch became more in vogue, and pocket watches quickly became an afterthought, finding their ways into sock drawers and scrap heaps, and that's a tragedy. Enter Vortic Watch Company, helping bridge the gap between America's storied watchmaking past and taking it to present day, where wristwatches are finding incredible popularity once again. And here's the coolest part: each watch that Vortic makes is unique and one of a kind. Vortic, founded on the motto that America wasn't assembled, it was built. Check out VorticWatches.com for more information or to purchase a watch of the day. And the Barbecue Central Show being brought to you by the Ryder Deluxe Pellet Grills from Oklahoma Joe's Smokers. And I think that's going to do it, as we thank Doug Scheiding for joining us this past segment and the segment before, talking about social media getting booted out of season 3 of American Idol Barbecue Central Show Edition, unfortunately. Not making it in the second round for the second year in a row, I believe. And also playing a round of what does Doug like best versus what does Sam like best, because Sam the cooking guy wasn't in. All right, let's roll it all the way back to the first hour. It was Malcom Reed sitting in for 2 segments. We did the ribs round table, breaking it all down from start to finish. And then we talked a little Memphis in May, the ramp up to what's going to be happening a week from this coming weekend, what it looks like for him as setup and cost, what his chances of winning Memphis in May on the 15th are. He said 99.9% chance of him winning, which I certainly appreciate. Second hour, it was Doug Scheiding. We did a little game show in lieu of Sam the cooking guy not being in. We kicked him out of American Idol, as I just talked about it, which I hated to do. And then we talked a lot about social media and how to build a legitimate Instagram following, as he has done right along here over the last handful of years, 20,000 plus. Does not lie. He's doing it right, and you should follow his directions as well if you're looking to do it yourself. Big show planned for you next week. Of course, Meathead will be back in. Robert Moss will be back in, amongst others. Love your feedback on the show. Hit me, Greg, at thebbqcentralshow.com. Tell me what you think of the show, what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to hear less of. So how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.
This is Chris Payne from Euclid, Ohio, and you are listening to Barbecue Central.